everybody, good evening and welcome to BYJU'S 9th and 10th grade channel. I'm your teacher Aishwarya and I welcome you to yet another amazing class where today we are going to kickstart the chapter Life Processes. And in today's class, we are going to do an introduction to life process. We're going to get started with the first important life process, which is nutrition and its types, and explore more about autotrophic mode of nutrition and mainly explore the entire topic of photosynthesis. So I hope that all of you are excited for this class, and very quickly students, please do let me know if my audio, my video and my screen and whatever I'm writing on the screen is visible to all of you. If it is, please do give me a quick thumbs up in the live chat to let me know that we are good to go. Okay, so now as you can all see, right, today I'm looking a little bit different than my usual self. Maybe color wise I'm looking a little pinkish, or probably appearance wise I may look slightly different than normal. So this is actually because I'm taking the session not from the studio but from Ankita Ma'am's home studio, right? So that there were slightly some tech issues that we were facing in our main studio and we didn't want to cancel the class, which is why I am here ensuring that this class will happen today, and that's why we were just sorting out some of the basic things in the beginning. So everything is good to go. Okay, am I audible? Yes, am I audible? I hope I am. Some of you are saying, ma'am, there is no sound. Is that the case? No, I can see that all of you are clear. Everything is audible, right? So I hope that everything is good to go. Yes? Awesome. Okay. Now there might be some slight issues, right? In the sense there might be a slight delay of few seconds from when you are seeing to versus when I'm telling you. That's not a problem. That's just some stream issues that we are going to be facing. And for those of you who are going to tell me ki ma'am sound issue hai, please check your earphones and connection. I think it will be fine. ठीक है? Yes, awesome. Okay, all of you, good evening, good evening. Let's get started. Now, what can you expect today, right? In today's class, what are all the things that we are going to cover? So, first and foremost, students, today we are going to be starting off the chapter, which means I will be giving you a complete chapter explanation, right? So, there is going to be a complete chapter explanation that is going to happen today. Secondly, I will ensure that we do NCERT reading as well, right? So we are going to be doing NCERT reading, which means that side by side, as I explain the concepts, I will make you mark the important pointers. And along with all of this, we are going to be solving some previous year questions. We are going to be also solving questions from NCERT exemplar. There are going to be subjective questions, objective questions. We are going to do everything. Which means when we do concept by concept or lesson by lesson, I will ensure that the entire thing happens at one go. Now, how long can today's class be? Today's class is most likely going to happen for about 2 hours at the bare minimum. Let me tell you in the beginning, the least I will take is 2 hours. Let me be clear, the least I will take is 2 hours. There are chances that the class can extend also. So everybody, please don't hope that all of you are prepared for this, which means that have your notebooks, have your textbooks ready. Yes? So have your notebook and textbook ready. Make sure that you have your water bottles ready. And of course, be in a quiet place so that you can study for the next 1.5 hours, and ensure that you are completely focused on today's class. Yes? Okay. Students who are saying that there is no sound, I am able to hear this on YouTube. My phone is there on YouTube for students, so all of you who are saying that I am not audible, right? So before I get started, just to clarify this so that I avoid unnecessary spam, I'm going to check once again with all of you, right? Am I audible? Yes or no? Am I audible? Is my screen clear? We are not facing any issues. Yes? Okay. Should you take notes? You are audible. I'm seeing that there's a mix of students who are saying that I am audible, some who are saying there is no sound. Students who are saying no sound, are you spamming? Is that what's happening? Okay, to the majority Janta, I can see that I am audible, which means that students, help your friends out in the live chat, those of you who are facing issues, because it could be most likely that there are some tech issues that they are facing, right? Yes, I am audible. Okay, so help your friends out in the live class. For those of whom can't hear me, it is most likely that they are facing some technical issues. Yes, so let me just make sure I have everything ready. Okay. So now, of course, in this particular case, right, last class, of course, I started with the bridge session where we went to the entire basic concepts and I had asked you a homework question, and here are all my homework warriors. Now, of course, I avoid using the word homework heroes because some of you get a little upset that, ma'am, why not heroines and all of that, which is why we are going to stick to homework warriors. Now I can see that Gungun, I have Question Planet, Shraddha, then I have Avengers, Archana, Joshita, Advika, Ritish, Nivedita. Then I can also see here that Malushruti, Kavya, Anagha. Then I can see that some user here, Samiksha. Also, I can see Anisha, Aditya, Madhura, Uchiha, okay, and Sky, all of you who have given me the answers, along with which many more answers which are here in the live chat. So well done all of you. Super proud of all of you. 5 stars. There are many more answers, some whose names may or may not be there on the screen, but does not mean that your answers were any less awesome. Now, again, at the end of today's class, I will be giving you a homework question and you guys stand a chance to get featured in the next class that is going to happen. So without wasting any more time, students, we will get started. Now, as you all know, life process here holds maximum weightage, right? So normally, if you look at the 5 chapters, we have a total of 25 marks that come from 4 chapters of biology, 5 marks which will come from the chapter that is our environment. But from the world of living, we see that although it's not a fixed number, minimum 6 to 9 marks comes from this particular chapter, ranging from your MCQs, your section B, C, D, E. All possible questions can come from this particular chapter, which is why we will get started with it in great detail, right? Awesome. So everybody, I hope you're excited. Please make sure you're taking notes simultaneously. You can write the important pointers in your textbook, or when you're doing NCERT reading, then also you can write down the important questions, right? Okay. So with this, all of you, we're going to get started and let's have a look at the first concept, right? Now, as we all know, this particular chapter deals, or the name of the chapter is life processes. Yes. So when I say the word life processes, we need to break it down, right? We need to whenever chapters are there, the first thing we need to do is to break it down. So here we have the first topic, which means we're going to talk about what is life, right? Now, when I talk about life, what are the things that come to your mind? You might tell me, ki ma'am, life means animals and plants. Life means breathing, like Govardhani tells me, right? Then I can see that life that is there also means respiration, okay? So here I can see that a lot of you here have your own explanations when you say or when we hear the term life, yes? But we know that when we talk about life, it also means living, right? So in this particular case, we see that there are so many things around us. But very clearly, we are able to understand that there are certain things which are living versus certain things which are non-living, right? So what is my basis of understanding that something is living versus something is non-living? Let's understand. We know that living organisms, this is something we have learned in our grade 6, right? Living organisms that are there, or living things, have certain characteristics because of which we are able to identify that they are living, yes? For example, if I ask you what is the most basic thing that is there in living organisms, that you are able to tell me ki haan, ye living organism hai, ye nahi hai, right? The main important thing here is that living organisms exhibit growth, right? So we know that they grow and they age, right? So we can say that they may grow in size, we can say that they grow in height, they grow in, the way they appear, yes? So growth is very important. Along with which we know that living organisms are all made of cells. Yes, we've learned this in our 9th standard, that they are all made up of cells, and we know that based on whether they are unicellular or multicellular, we know that, let's say, they have different levels of organization, right? Now, along with this, what do we also observe? We also know that various chemical activities take place within the cell, right? Various chemical activities. So, in this particular case, we know that that is what we understand as metabolism. So, metabolism is the sum total of chemical reactions that are happening inside the cell. And if that is happening, then that is what is keeping the cell alive, right? Now, along with this, we also know that they are able to respond to stimuli. Now, what is stimuli? We will explore this in great detail in our 2nd chapter, but stimuli is basically any agent that brings about a response, right? Now, for example, if I am hungry, I need to eat, right? So, hunger is a stimulus, right? If somebody throws a ball or at my direction, I'm not going to be like, yeah, let the ball come and hit me. No, right? What am I going to do? I'm going to dodge so that I make sure that the ball doesn't hit me, right? So in such cases, living organisms that are there exhibit various characteristics, right? So some characteristics that we've explored, like growth, we've seen about how we require food, yes? Now, along with this, we also see that we require energy to carry out various reactions. Yes. So, there are various reactions that we require. So, various chemical reactions that happen within our body that require energy. Yes. We know that there needs to be transport of substances, movement of substances that happen internally. And we also know that we physically move around, right? And along with that, we know that whatever is not needed by the body, we get rid of it. And of course, we excrete it out. So in this particular case, we see that all these characteristics that we observe is what makes you and I living, that makes us or that helps us identify that, okay, this is a living organism, this is not a living organism, right? So far, are we all clear with the basic characteristics of living organisms? Yes or no? Give me a quick thumbs up in the live chat to let me know that so far we are clear with what is the concept. I know that there are various doubts that are coming during the live class, which I will take when I do a doubt board session. So are we all clear? Yes? Are we all clear? Okay. Quick thumbs up. Yes? Harsimran, Fiza, all of you, doubts I will take when I do a doubt board session. Yes? Okay. Okay, all of you, I can see that all of you are giving me a thumbs up, which means so far we've got a basic idea that there are living organisms and they exhibit some characteristics. What are these characteristics? These characteristics are movement, nutrition, respiration, transportation, excretion and reproduction. Yes? So these are all some of the basic characteristics that we observe. Now, what if there is a living organism and it is not moving, right? Or if there is let's assume there is an organism and it is not moving. For example, we have a mushroom, right? Do we see mushrooms moving around? Yes. Do we see mushrooms walking from one place to another? Or if you look at plants, right? If you look at plants, do we observe them going from one place to another? No, right? We don't observe all these plants walking around in search of food or, walking around to meet their friends. No, right? We don't see things moving around. But does that mean that they are non-living? Yes, can we say that they are non-living? Oh, they are not moving around. That means that, hey, life is not happening. Absolutely not, right? Just because we don't see certain movements. Understand that movements can be broadly classified into external movements and we have internal movements, right? So external movements are the movements that you and I are able to do, right? That means when we go from, let's say, point A to point B, or let's say when I move my hands up and down. So these are all external movements, right? That means you are able to see. Yes? While on the other hand, there are some movements which are happening at a molecular level, right? So deep inside the movement or deep inside the cells, there is a lot of transport that happens. So in this particular case, what do you see? Movements need not always be things that you observe physically, but there are molecular movements also. which is why we see that at a molecular level, so many chemical processes are happening, right? So we see that there are various chemical processes that are happening at a molecular level, and all these processes that are there are necessary for you and I to stay alive, which is why we say that such processes that are necessary for survival, processes that are essential to make sure that we continue living. And now we know what is that word living, right? That associates to us doing some activities, some characteristics, yes? Which is why in such a case, the maintaining functions, right, of living organisms that keep on happening even when we are not doing anything in particular. That means if I sit still, or if I go to sleep, or if I am doing nothing and I'm being a couch potato for the day, right? If that is the case, right? In this particular case, we call it as life processes. That means no matter what I'm doing, these processes need to keep happening. Which is why I always define life processes as those processes which are necessary for survival, right? So life processes are those processes which are essential for survival or necessary for life to continue. Now what are these 4 life processes? We have nutrition, respiration, transportation and excretion. So these are the 4 life processes that we will be covering in this particular chapter, and today we are going to elaborate more on nutrition and why it is an essential life process. Yes? So everybody, I know lot of spam, lot of questions in the live chat, but before I go ahead, are we clear? I will take all your questions, all your doubts, but I will do it only when I do the doubt board part, and up until then I need you all to tell me if everything is good to go, concepts are clear, you have understood everything, I am not rushing, I am not going too fast, right? Shreya, I will tell you why I am spending time on these concepts. Because CBSE has made it very clear that they are going to focus on competency. And if you all have had a look at your previous year papers, you will realize. See, I always get these students in my class, okay, who want to get to the main parts. But the reason being that you will get questions from these parts also. And if you get questions, you should know how to answer. Which is why we need to make sure that every single concept in the textbook is not left untouched. There is no concept which I will tell is ye bahut important hai, ye important nahi hai. Because at this point we have reached a case where CBSE will test how much of it you are able to know and apply. Which is why students, if you think that I'm spending too much time on a basic concept, it is because they can ask you questions. Yes? So everybody, please make sure that you are clear with what I have taught you so far. Yes? CC, amazing. Yes? Awesome. Very good, all of you. Very, very good. Now, let's understand a little bit more, right? So the story goes a little bit more in terms of understanding how exactly these 4 life processes are interconnected. Now, I've already spoken to you about this in the bridge session, so I'll go a little bit more faster. But here we will look more at what NCERT has to tell us, right? So we know that the story starts with food that we eat, right? So if you look at the food that we eat, we know that it is the fuel that drives our body, and food needs to be taken in and then broken down into simple substances so that our body can use it. Yes? Now once the food is broken down into usable substances, we see that it then needs to get transported to different parts, right? Which is why in this case we know that at the end of it, we see that it gets transported to different parts in order to release energy. And energy is needed for various molecular activities, and we also know that for various chemical reactions. So here we see that there is a series of oxidizing, reducing reactions that take place. So here I'm using the words oxidizing and reducing. So redox reaction, right? So this is something you will again elaborate or learn more about in chemistry. So oxidizing reactions are those reactions which require oxygen. So if you look at respiration or breakdown of glucose, it requires oxygen, right? And this oxygen is what is sourced outside. It's found on the outside, and we make it available to our body by a process of diffusion. Yes? Concept of diffusion is something we have learned in 9th standard, where movement of substances takes place from a region of let's say it takes place or movement happens from a region of high concentration to a region of low concentration. So in this particular case, if you see, we know that energy is required. So when you talk about energy is required both by a unicellular organism and it is required by a multicellular organism also, right? And we know that in both cases, they may use oxygen, right? Multicellular organism, let's take the example of humans. And unicellular, let us take the example of amoeba, right? Now both require oxygen. But my question to you is, if both require oxygen, do you think that both will use or will take oxygen the same way? Or they will take, or let's say it will make oxygen available to the body in the same way? Yes? Fiza, I can see that I will answer your question, but please don't spam because there are a lot of students here who have questions, which is why I need you to pay attention. Please don't spam. Yes? Okay. So quickly, I will repeat it once again. This is why I need all of you to pay attention, right? I am not going fast. I hope I'm not. If I'm going fast, tell me. I'll slow my pace down. But pay attention. Yes? Okay. No, ma'am. I have amoeba, which is unicellular. I have human being who is looking like this, right? First and foremost, number of cells are different. Yes. So in this particular case, what do you see? Unicellular means only one cell. One cell may all reactions are happening. Multicellular means many cells, right? So in this case, if you look at it, in the case of unicellular organism, firstly, there is no particular organ that is there, right? No specific organ for taking in the food, no specific organ that is responsible for gaseous, taking in oxygen, nothing. While here we see that there are specialized organs, right? So we see that there are specialized organs. And here it also means that more number of cells means that there is more specialized or a different body design, right? So let me just make that clear. We see that in this case there is a more, or I would say the body design is more complex, which is why here a process like simple diffusion, wherein we see that if oxygen is available more in number outside, it will diffuse inside through the entire cell area, right? So through the entire cell surface, diffusion will happen. What is diffusion? Diffusion is nothing but the process where there is movement of substances from a region of higher concentration to a region of lower concentration, right? So in this particular case, we see that through the entire cell surface, this particular process is able to happen. But what about in yours and my body? Do you think if we stand outside, oxygen is just going to diffuse into our body? No, that is not the case, right? Which is why in such cases, what do we observe? We have specialized structures. So we see that firstly, we have specialized structures. Secondly, our entire body, right? In this case, the entire cell surface is coming in contact. But in the case of multicellular organisms, what will happen? There are so many cells inside also, right? Just on the surface is one layer of my cells. But underneath there are more and more such cells, which means that by the time through diffusion it will reach all the cells, it will be tomorrow. And we need oxygen pretty fast. Which is why in such cases, we see that we have specialized structures or simple diffusion is not enough. Yes? So students who are having issues, right? Please make sure that I understand, see, for voice issue, I understand it's specific to some students. I don't understand why that is happening. So please help your friends out in the live chat. For others, I will definitely help you out with your doubts. Yes? So I'm going to go back once again and I will repeat what I just said, right? So we know what life processes are. Yes? What are life processes? Life processes are those processes which are essential for survival, right? So no matter what. So I will write the whole definition so you can make your notes also. So we see that these are processes which are essential for the survival of living organisms. Yes? Now these life processes can happen both in unicellular organisms, right? And it can happen in multicellular also, right? Because they're all living at the end of the day. Now in this case, what happens? We know that whether it is unicellular or multicellular, what is necessary? We know that food is essential because we know that food is the fuel that drives our body. Then this food needs to be broken down into simpler substances, right? So it gets broken down into simpler substances, or you can say substances which can be utilized. Yes? And then of course we know that it is then transported to different parts. Yes? So we know that it gets transported to different parts so that we can get energy, right? So we can get energy. So far we are all clear? Yes or no? Yes, are we all clear with this? Give me a quick thumbs up. We are clear? With this basic understanding, we are all clear. Very good. Now we know that in this particular case, for this process to happen or for energy generation, we require oxygen, right? So we require oxygen. In this particular case, for oxygen to be made available, right? For oxygen to be made available, we know that it differs from, let's say, unicellular and multicellular organisms. As a matter of fact, this whole process that I have described, starting from availability of food all the way till availability of oxygen, it is different, right? So in this case, what do we observe? We know that, let's assume a unicellular organism like amoeba. How does it take food? We will learn more in great detail, but we know that amoeba has false feet that helps in taking food, right? We don't have any false feet, but rather we have our mouth which helps us in doing that. Now similarly, if you talk about transport, substances are transported at a molecular level. We have an entire transporting system that is helping us do that. Same way if you talk about oxygen, right? We know that oxygen is normally available more in amount in the surroundings. So here we see that simple diffusion takes place. Now what is diffusion? Diffusion can be defined as the movement of substances. So let me write this down so that you can make a note. So diffusion can be defined as movement of substances from a region of high concentration to a region of low concentration, right? So here in the case of a unicellular organism, diffusion can happen through the entire cellular surface. But that cannot be the case in multicellular organism because we know that simple diffusion will not suffice. It will not suffice because oxygen needs to reach each and every cell, right? Oxygen needs to reach each and every cell, which is why in this case, the reason being that we have a complex bodies design, hence we have complex body structures, which is why in this case, we see that this alone is not going to be enough. Now are we all clear? Yes or no? Quick thumbs up in the live chat to let me know that we are good to go. Yes? No more issues. We are clear with the concept. Yes? It is to give you a basic idea of how life processes works, right? That is the reason. Ma'am, if energy is produced in mitochondria, does it require oxygen? Yes, it does require oxygen if it is produced in the mitochondria. Yes? Okay. Awesome. Clear? Okay. You can take a screenshot. See students, one of the many reasons why I am going very slowly, if you have your seniors in this class, you can ask them, right? Ankita ma'am and I have gone in great detail right from the beginning, not because we enjoy taking long classes and keeping students in our class. But the main reason being that we know how your CBSE board is thinking or how the examiners are thinking. And we want to make sure that you guys are fully prepared. See, at the end of it, bio should become so easy for all of you that no matter what application question they ask, you are able to crack it, right? Which is why it is important that all of you pay attention during my explanation, make notes wherever necessary. Ma'am, is pseudopodia and false feet the same? Yes, they are the same. Okay? So moving on, we're going to go to NCERT corner, which means we are going to do NCERT reading, right? So we are going to be doing NCERT reading, which means that I hope all of you have your NCERT textbooks open with you. Yes? Do you have it open? If not, please go open it now. I told you to have it in the beginning. Make sure you have your pencil ready. No pen. Please don't make your NCR textbook messy. No pen, no using ऐसे fancy sketch pens and all that. Pencil या फिर just use a highlighter. Highlighter भी I will not really recommend, but if you want to use highlighter, you go ahead and use highlighter. ठीक है? So going on, we're going to quickly read through the NCERT and what is available. Yes? Awesome. Now, in the first paragraph before 5.1, we see here that there are movements at a small scale that is not visible to the naked eye, right? Such as movement of molecules. So here they can ask you, what are the type of movements which are not visible to the naked eye? So now you will be able to tell me that molecular movements are those which are invisible. And are they necessary? Yes, we know that at a molecular level, certain movements are necessary. Now here, of course, we see that why are they necessary? Because we know that living organisms have certain levels of organization, and at a cellular level, we know that there are smaller components which are our cell organelles, and of course, we know that in order to keep them alive, various chemical reactions need to happen. So here, these are the pointers on molecular movements which they can ask you either for MCQ or they may ask for, let's say, a assertion reason type question. So please star mark this particular point. Yes? ठीक है. Now next is 5.1, which is telling us what is life process, right? So what are life processes? They are the maintaining functions. That means functions that need to keep happening in the living organism even when they are not doing anything in particular. That means even if I am going to be sitting down, right? Even if I'm going to be sitting down and doing nothing, then also this process needs to happen. Now Venika has asked me a question which I would like to answer right now itself. Ma'am, how is the area exposed to the environment related to specialized cells? Very good. See, area exposed to the environment. Now think about your skin. In our case, it's the skin, right, which is exposed. Now in this case, if it is very hot, or if somebody comes and pricks me, right, with a pen, if there's something very sharp that I hit, or let's say if if something is very hot and I touch it, I am able to react. But the pen or the needle or the let's say the flame, all of that is not part of my body. It's on the outside, which means it's part of my environment. So in my body, I have cells which are dedicated to recognize that. And in the next chapter is where we'll explore the idea of receptors, right? Receptors are specialized cells which have the ability to perceive anything in our surroundings. Yes, Venika? So we will explore more about it in the next class, or in the next chapter rather, I would say. Yes? Ma'am, life process is an internal movement. Life processes includes internal movement. Not that it is internal movement. Yes? ठीक है. Next up, right? So this is a maintenance job. Now this is the paragraph that we keep ignoring. Okay? वो intro वाला paragraph तो we ignore left, right, center, which is why I went through the paragraph in detail. So we know that these processes are necessary to make sure that our body functions properly and ensures that energy, make sure that growth, development, wo sab hoga. For that we need energy. Where does energy come from? We know that for energy to come, we need the food, right? So food is the fuel that drives our body. And we know that this obtaining food and utilizing it is what we call as nutrition. So now if the size of the organism, or if the body size of the organism is to grow, then additional raw materials would also be required. Which means that for energy, we normally utilize carbohydrates. But if I need to grow, I will not just use carbohydrates. I require proteins, I need bodybuilding things, right? That is what they mean by additional sources. Now, depending on the complexity of carbon source, different organisms use different nutritional process. That means that different organisms consume different kinds of food. Now, along with this, we also see that we require energy, right? So, we see that in different organisms, we see that sometimes food needs to be broken down, right? So, here we see that it needs to be broken down or built up in the body, and then it needs to be converted to a uniform source. That means at a molecular level, this energy needs to be in a form that my cells can use, right? So that they can use it up. So for this, there are series of chemical reactions that take place. So we have oxidizing, reducing reactions that help in breaking down these complex chemical substances. Yes? Now this is the point that I was telling you. Now here the process of acquiring oxygen differs from organism to organism, right? So in the case of single-celled organism, there are no specific organs for taking in the food, for having gaseous exchange or removal of waste, because here the entire surface of the organism is in contact with the environment. But what about in multicellular organisms? All the cells may not be in direct contact, right? They are not in contact with the environment. Now, if you talk about my heart cell, or if you talk about my muscle cells, if you talk about my cells that make up the stomach, they are not in contact. Hence, a process of simple diffusion will not be enough. And thereby, we have specialized structures in the body, right, that help us in doing so. We have specialized transporting systems, specialized, let's say, substances parts that help in getting rid of waste materials. So, are we all clear? Yes? Raghavendra, definitely, we will put it up. Yes? Oxidizing reactions are those reactions which utilize oxygen, while reduction division reactions are those wherein either hydrogen gets added or oxygen gets removed. So that is what we mean as an oxidation reaction and a reduction reaction. And when they happen simultaneously, we call it as a redox reaction. Okay? Riddhi, they will never ask you what is the definition of life process. That is my guarantee to you. Nobody is going to ask you what is life process, but rather they will ask you to identify things based on this. Yes? Are we all clear? Are we all clear? Good to go? Yes? False feet are those feet which we see in amoeba where they have these finger-like projections, right? So see, they don't have proper shape. So what they do, in order to move, they project the cytoplasm and cell membrane, and we call that as false feet. Class 8 sessions will happen soon. We will update it on the Telegram channel. Yes? All cells, Sidhu, sorry. This line which says that in the case of multicellular organisms, all cells are not in contact. That means, think of which is in contact with the environment. Do you think that the cell that is making up your stomach is in contact with the outside? No, right? It's inside your body. You yourself, you are not able to see. Or you take blood. When does blood come in contact? When there's a cut or a wound. Otherwise, where is it? It is inside the body, right? So in such cases, blood cells, muscle cells, bone cells, they are not in contact with the environment. What is my environment? It is my surrounding. Yes? Okay. Awesome. So with this, all of you, I have a question and I want you to give me the keywords in the answer. Why is diffusion insufficient to meet the oxygen requirements of multicellular organisms like human beings? This can come for 2 marks in your unit test exam if that's happening pretty soon, right? So if you have your UTs coming, this is a question that they will ask you. Yes? Okay. Very quickly, I need the 2 pointers. Sure, Nivedita, I will answer that in the comments. Ma'am, why not molecular level? Why molecular level, not atomic level? Oh, see, atoms that are there, right? See, end of the day, how do atoms exist? Do we have oxygen atom existing? Oxygen exists in its molecular form, which is made of 2 atoms, right? Yes. What is breaking down means when the molecules that are there or the compounds that are there break down into simpler substances. Because no contact of cell. Very good. The keyword here should be no direct contact. Right? We know that there is no direct contact of all the cells. Yes? And in such cases, we know that in multicellular organisms, there is a complex body design. Right? And when there are more number of cells, there is a larger requirement of oxygen. Yes? So we see that there is a larger requirement of oxygen. Unlike in the case of unicellular organisms, which are able to do this through the entire cell surface. So in such cases, if you are writing the answer for 2 marks, you will have to write 2 pointers. diffusion is insufficient. Why? Because all the cells are not in direct contact, right? And in such case, diffusion becomes a slow process. And we know that in our body, we require large amounts. Hence, in such cases, we know that so we have specialized structures that ensures that more oxygen is made available to the body. Yes? Very good. Next question is going to be a poll question for all of you. Which among the following is incorrect? And this is an NCERT exemplar question. I'm going to quickly give you a poll, right? So that you can give me the answer in the live chat. Yes? This is a very simple, easy peasy question. I'm sure you will be able to give me the answer. This is not a PYQ. The previous one was a textbook in-text question. This right here is going to be a exemplar question. Very good, Navjot. Very good, all of you. Yes. Afreen, I will go back after you give me the answer for this, right? Organisms will grow with time. Organisms must repair and maintain their structure. Movement of molecules does not take place among cells, or we know that energy is essential for life processes. So which among the following is correct? Yes? This should be very simple and easy, right? Very, very simple, easy peasy question for all of you. Yes, I will be, 9th grade timetable will be updated soon on the live chat, right? Super, very good, all of you, very good. I can see that many of you here have given me the correct answer, right? So in this particular case, option C is incorrect because we know that movement of substances can take place at a molecular level as well, right? So correct answer is, the incorrect statement here is that of option C. Yes? Very, very good. So now are we feeling confident? What is your confidence level between 1 to 10? Because after this we're going to start nutrition and we will go into deep dive into photosynthesis, right? So we will make sure that we go into the details of it. Okay. Shaurya, good question which I will answer in some time. Okay. Let's get started, everyone. All of you are feeling confident. Everything is crystal clear. All of you are sending me CC in the live chat. That is amazing. 10 out of 10. Yes, that is what we require. See, students, it's not about who is going to finish the syllabus fast. Am I going to take 15 classes or will I finish everything in 1 hour and I will tell you, live process ho gaya 1 ghante mein. Unless and until your concepts are not clear, if you're sitting with me in the live class, concept clarity over anything, right? It's okay if it takes us 6-8 hours to understand one concept, but as long as you understand it, you will never forget it, right? Yes. Okay. Yeah, guys, don't get distracted. Rama and everyone else, please don't get distracted, right? Okay. So now we're going to move on to nutrition, and now I would say another 20 minutes, right? We are going to get in up until the basics of photosynthesis. I need your complete undivided attention, which means no spamming in the live chat, no unnecessary conversations. I need you to close the live chat and just put me on full screen, have your textbook open, and please make sure that you are listening to me. Nobody text on the live chat at this point. I need you all to pay attention, right? Doubts I will take. So far, I think most of you had also clarified when I explained it 2-3 times, which is why for the other part, I didn't stay for a doubt board. This I'll give you a doubt board. Yes? Okay, now I know that all of you, I have your 100% attention. Let's get started. Now that we're understood that there are various processes that are interlinked, right? Which is going to be the life processes. Yes, so we know that we have our nutrition, we have respiration, we have transportation, and we have excretion. Yes, so in this case, what do we observe? We see that 4 important life processes is what we are going to be covering here. Now, the first life process that we know or that we will learn about is nutrition. Now, of course, in the case of nutrition, we know that nutrition is a concept we've been learning right from our lower grades. But what does nutrition mean, right? So, nutrition here refers to a process of taking in food, right? So, it refers to the process of taking in food and utilizing it, right? So it means that it is the whole process by which an organism obtains its food and then utilizes it. Now what do I mean by utilizing it? Utilizing it means to get or to use it for some reason, right? So why would I need food? I need food because I need to produce energy, I need to grow, I need to develop, I need to do various activities. So there I am using the food, right? I am using the components of food. So that is what we mean by utilizing, yes? Now at the end of it, we know that food that is there is the fuel that drives our body, right? So we know that food that is there is the fuel that drives our body because we need it for various reactions. Now in the food that you and I eat, right? So let's look at the food that we eat. In the food let's say you and I eat, we know that food has a lot of nutrients, right? So nutrients are chemical substances, yes? So we know that these are some chemical substances that we use for, again, so that we can grow, so that we can develop, so that we can repair any, let's say some damage that is there, and of course to produce energy, right? So that is what we mean by nutrients. Now in this particular case, we have nutrients like carbohydrates, proteins, fats, vitamins and minerals. Now my question is, these nutrients that are there, we get it from food that we eat. We don't make our own food, right? Within our body, we are not making any food, but rather we are eating food either, let's say, from plants, or we are eating it from the animals, right? So we are not eating our own food. But what about some organisms like plants? Do we see plants going and searching for food and then going and eating it and then, growing in size and trees that are becoming big and big? No, right? We don't see plants doing that. But rather we know that there is a process that happens internally within the plants where they prepare their own food. Which is why in this case, what do we observe? We know that there are two ways in which organisms obtain food. Organisms can either prepare their own food or they are dependent on other organisms for food. And based on this, we can say that there are two modes of nutrition. We have autotrophic mode of nutrition and heterotrophic mode of nutrition. Now, autotrophic. Auto means self, right? Trophos. The word trophos means nourishment or to nourish. Which means here in autotrophic mode of nutrition, I see that these are organisms which can make its own food from simple inorganic raw materials. Now we know that organic substances are those substances. Now write this down in your textbook as I tell you. Organic substances are those which are normally found in living organisms, right? So we say that organic substances, a very simplified definition is that those which are found in living organisms, while inorganic are those that we find in, let's say, in the environment, right? So in this case, we have inorganic raw materials like carbon dioxide and water, which are utilized in order to prepare their own food. And such organisms are what we call as autotrophs, yes? So we call such organisms as autotrophs. But what about hetero? Hetero does not mean different, but hetero means other, right? Hetero means others, other here. So in heterotrophic mode of nutrition, what do we see? They are not doing anything for themselves, right? So in this particular case, we see that it is a mode of nutrition where they are dependent on other organisms for food. They cannot prepare their own food. They are dependent on other organisms, which is why in this case, if you see all the other organisms, if you take, let's say, amoeba, paramecium, you take fungi, you take animals, right? All of them come under the category of heterotrophic mode of nutrition, and we call them as heterotrophs, right? So we will call them as heterotrophs. So today we are not going to get into heterotrophic mode of nutrition because that's a whole other thing altogether. But today we will focus more on autotrophic mode of nutrition. Now when I talk about autotrophic mode of nutrition, right? There is one word that we often relate with. And this is an emoji game that we've been playing right from our lower grades. And all of you can tell me the answer to this, right? What is the most important theory or the most important concept that is related to this? Can you all tell me? from this particular emoji, right? But none other, I mean, if you think about it, it's pretty obvious and simple, right? So when you talk about autotrophic mode, what is the most important thing? Yes? Exactly, we have photosynthesis. Yes? Very good. So when we talk about autotrophic mode of nutrition, hand in hand we discuss about photosynthesis as well, right? So photosynthesis here that is there is something that we've been hearing about. See, I'll tell you, photosynthesis is not new to us. We've been learning about it right from our lower grades. But what happens from 10th standard, no? Photosynthesis starts becoming different. Different how? You will now realize how many chemical reactions are involved in this. Then when you go to your higher grades, especially in 11th standard, you will not like photosynthesis because of the number of chemical reactions that are going to take place, right? Photosynthesis gets an entire perspective from 10th standard onwards. So what is this photosynthesis? First and foremost, we see that photosynthesis is a process by which we see that green plants prepare their own food by combining carbon dioxide and water in the presence of sunlight and chlorophyll in order to produce glucose and gives out oxygen as a byproduct. So in this particular case, what do we see? If I were to split the word, photo means light and synthesis means to combine, right? So here we see that in the presence of light, we see that there are components, right? Components like carbon dioxide and water combining. Yes, they are combining in the presence of sunlight and chlorophyll in order to produce, let's say, food for now, and it gives out oxygen. Yes? Now, where does this process of photosynthesis happen? So technically what is happening? They are synthesizing food, right? So they are synthesizing food, yes or no? So where is the kitchen? So if food is being made, food is going to be made in the kitchen, yes? So where is the kitchen of the plant, right? Or what do we call as the kitchen of the plant? Can you tell me? Yes? Where is the kitchen and where is this process happening? You should be able to tell me by now, right? Simple. This is grade 7 and grade 5 concept. Easy peasy question. Very good. In the leaves, right? So in the green leaves, we know that this particular process takes place. Yes? Now, of course, surface of the leaf that is there, right? So this right here, what do you see is the leaf, right? So this is now going to be on the surface, right? Now, of course, in this particular case, we know that the leaf surface is what we call as the lamina, right? Then we have this line that runs in the middle, which is the midrib, yes? And from here we have the various veins that will branch out, right? So we see that these are the various structures in the surface. But now if I were to take the same leaf and I cut it from top to bottom, right? So I am going to cut in this manner and I am going to zoom this part. I've cut it from top to bottom and then I'm going to show you how it looks like. So this right here is a cross section of the leaf, right? That means I've cut it from top to bottom and I have shown it to you as to how it would look like. So these are the different layers or the different cells that make up the leaf. Yes? Now this is very important, students. In your textbook, you have a very simplified diagram that is going to help you understand which layer is what. But last year and last to last year, the diagram is very important because they have asked you where what is available, right? In which layer do we observe this process happening? In which layer do I find this happening? Which is why in this particular case, I would tell you that all of you please star mark the diagram that is there of the cross section of the leaf. Now if you see the outermost layer that you see, right? So from top to bottom, we see that on top we have a layer of continuous protective cells, which we know is the epidermis, and the part which is present on top. Now how do I decide what is on top? Top is the part which is exposed to the sun, right? The top part of the leaf is the side of the leaf which is exposed to the sun. Yes? While the bottom part is what is not exposed, right? So we see that we have an epidermis layer or an epidermal layer, and we have an upper epidermis as well as a lower epidermis. Yes? Now what is epidermis? We know that epidermis is made of a layer of continuously arranged cells called as epidermal cells. Primary function is to provide protection. Yes? Now we also know that they can sometimes secrete a waxy substance called as cutin, which then forms another waxy waterproofing layer called as cuticle, right? So again, cuticle is something that we find on top of the epidermis. Now beneath the epidermis, I find the cells which make up my leaf. And we call these cells as mesophyll cells, right? So all the cells that you observe here, right? All these cells that I'm highlighting in black color, these are all my mesophyll cells. Now mesophyll cells are nothing but cells which are present or that make up the leaf, that makes the large majority of the leaf. And we see that there are two types of mesophyll cells, right? So we have these long cells. So let me quickly revise this. You can write this down. So you have mesophyll cells. What are mesophyll cells? These are cells which make up the leaf, right, or the bulk of the leaf. Now there are two types of cells, right? So from the diagram, if you noticed, there were some which were long like this, right? Then there were some which looked bouncy and there were some spaces between these two. Yes or no? Yes or no? Did you observe that there were two kinds of cells when I showed you mesophyll? Quickly tell me a yes or no in the live chat. I'm sure you would have observed it in the diagram. You would have observed it in the diagram. Very good. So in this particular case, we see that there are two kinds of mesophyll cells where we have our palisade mesophyll cells and we have our spongy mesophyll cells, right? So we have palisade. Very good. Circular and round? No, not cylinder. Okay, cylinder and round. Okay, fine. That is acceptable, right? So in this particular case, what do we see? We see that there are two types. We have that there are palisade mesophyll cells. Then of course we have another one which is going to be spongy, right? So we have your spongy mesophyll cells as well. So in this particular case, palisade mesophyll cells and spongy. You don't need to go into the details of it. All you need to know is that there are some cells called as mesophyll cells. Now these mesophyll cells that are there have a specific cell organelle in them. And this cell organelle is nothing but our chloroplast, right? So if I take one single mesophyll cell, then I will see that this mesophyll cell will have a cell organelle, which is the chloroplast. Now from 9th standard, if we were to recall our knowledge about plastids, right? We know that plastids are specific types of cell organelles which I will find only in my plant cells, right? And we know that there's a specific kind of plastid called as chloroplast which has a pigment in them called as chlorophyll. And this is what imparts the green color to my leaf. So where will I find this chloroplast? I will find it inside the mesophyll cells, which means where does the process of photosynthesis happen now? In which cells does the process of photosynthesis take place? Can you tell me? Now you should be able to give me the answer to this. Where exactly does the process of photosynthesis take place inside the leaf? Inside the leaf, inside which cells does it happen? You should be able to tell me now, right? We know that photosynthesis happens inside chloroplast. Now where am I finding my chloroplast? I am finding my chloroplast in my mesophyll cells, which is why maximum amount of photosynthesis, right? Maximum amount of photosynthesis takes place inside the mesophyll cells. This is a pointer that you all should be able to interpret because they can ask you in the examination. Yes? Okay. Going back to the previous one, right? So we have elaborated on what are these mesophyll cells. Now you must be wondering what are these round things in between, right? So you would have observed this also. Lot of circular, tubular structures which are available here. So what are these tubular structures that you observe? This is mainly the vascular bundles, right? So this what you see in the center are the vascular bundles, which includes your xylem and your phloem. And last but not the least, in your lower epidermis, we also observe or find various openings, right? Or various pores, which we call as stomata. So we know that the number of stomata are more in the lower epidermis, are more in number in the lower epidermis when compared to the upper, which is why in this case, what do we observe? We know that if you were to identify which is an upper epidermis and a lower, you should be able to know that it is the agar stomata hai, that means it is lower epidermis. Normally in diagram they will not show you in the upper epidermis, right? So here we also see that stomata are the fine openings which are present primarily on the lower epidermis, that is part of the leaf. So now are we clear about the structure of the leaf? Are we clear about the cross section and the different parts of the leaf and what kind of cell organelles we find and where we find it? Yes? Ma'am, but chlorophyll is present in chloroplast. It is, right? And where do we find this chloroplast? Chloroplast in turn is found inside the mesophyll cell. Yes? Okay, PDF will be available to you. Yes? Ma'am, is lower epidermis called dermis? The term dermis is not something we use in plants. We use the concept of dermis in skin, right? So we have epidermis and dermis layer. Okay? Where is starch? I will tell you where starch is available, right? Ma'am, stomata is different in different plants. Number of stomata differ from plant to plant, but not structure of stomata per se. Yeah. Awesome, very good all of you. Everything is good to go. Amazing, right? Amazing. Now let us move on to the next concept. Now we know, again quickly to revise photosynthesis, what is the process? We know that it is a process by which your carbon dioxide and water combine. So let's stop there at carbon dioxide and water, right? So you know that your carbon dioxide, it was actually a very beautiful GIF which is not playing. Carbon dioxide is a gas, yes, which enters from the surrounding and then it enters into the plant. Now that is where carbon dioxide comes from. But before I elaborate on carbon dioxide, let's talk about water. Where do we find water? Water is normally found in the soil, right? So water is found in the soil. Now, who is responsible for making sure that the leaf gets water? Who is responsible for making sure that my plant, my beautiful leaf is going to get water? Who is going to do that very quickly? Yes, you know the answer to this. It's very simple. Class will be there. I said 2 hours. That was what I told you. 2 hours ka class hai today, which means it will be there till 8:45. I started at 6:45, should be done by 8:45 for sure. Ma'am, us and environment. Roots, exactly. Root, xylem also I will accept, but it's your roots, right? Your roots are the ones who are going to absorb the water. Yes, so they will absorb this water and the xylem will transport it all the way to the leaves. Yes, so now we know that from the roots, your xylem will ensure that the water is made available to the leaf. And what part of the leaf? We know that it will go all the way to the mesophyll cells, right? So I don't know why my handwriting is going haywire, but exactly. So go all the way till the mesophyll cells. Now next up you have carbon dioxide. Now how does carbon dioxide enter? Yes? Can you all tell me how does carbon dioxide reach all the way inside the leaf so that photosynthesis can happen? Yes? Can you tell me how exactly this is going to happen? How does carbon dioxide reach all the way till my mesophyll cells? Yes? Very good, right? So we know that in the case of carbon dioxide, it will enter through the stomata. Now, if you look at the stomata, we know that stomata that are there are small openings which are found at the lower surface or the lower epidermal layer of the leaf, right? And if you look at the structure of the stomata, we see that they are surrounded by 2 kidney-shaped cells, right? So we see that they are surrounded by 2 kidney-shaped cells or 2 kidney bean-shaped cells called as guard cells. And we see that this is the opening that is there, which we call as the stomatal pore, right? So we see that this is the stomatal pore. Now, there should be place, right? It should be opened. Only when it is open will the carbon dioxide enter, right? If it is not open, it is not going to enter. So in this particular case, when is the stomata open and when is the stomata closed? Now, if the stomata is open, that means that the guard cells have this perfect kidney shaped structure, right? So we see that guard cells need to maintain their kidney shaped or kidney bean shaped structure, and that will happen when there is a lot of water, right? So think about it. Think of it as a balloon, okay? Think of it as a balloon. Imagine you had a balloon. It has no proper shape. It is flaccid like this. But when you fill it with water, what will happen? We see that cells will have a certain shape, right? Because the water is ensuring that it is exerting some pressure, and along with that it is giving the balloon a certain shape. So similarly, if the guard cell needs to have that kidney bean shaped, it means that water has entered into the guard cell and cells are turgid, right? So thereby what will happen? We see that in this particular case, yes. So in this particular case, water will enter into the guard cell. The guard cell will become turgid and stomata will be open, so that my carbon dioxide can enter into my leaf. Yes? Are we clear with this? Are we clear? We have learned about this in the concept of osmosis, right? Osmosis is nothing but movement of substances from a region of high concentration to low concentration, region of high concentration to low concentration, right? And when a cell will swell, we say that it is turgid, right? Very good. So this is what we understand. So you should know when is the stomata open. See students, this is a sure short question that you will get in the examination, okay? Every year they ask a question based on this. And at times they can ask you to draw the stomata also, right? Which is why all of you please pay attention. If you have not understood, ask me once again, right? This is very, very important. I'll give you a break after this. After I finish this, I'll give you a break, okay? So when does the stomata open? Stomata opens when water enters, cell becomes turgid, thereby carbon dioxide will enter. And we know that movement of gases, right? So we know that movement of gases primarily take place by the process of diffusion. So it goes from a region of higher concentration to lower concentration. Yes? Then how does stomata close? Very good. How will the stomata close? Stomata will close when the water is gone. So if I have a fully blown balloon and I want to make sure that it is loose, right? I want to make sure that it goes back to being like this. Then I will get rid of all the water, right? So I will get rid of all the water. So in this case, we see that the water will move out of the cell, right? So we see that water moves out, and as a result, what will happen? These kidney shaped cells that are there will become flaccid. That means they have lost their shape. Yes? So when they have lost their shape, they have become flaccid. Stomata will become closed. Thereby, no gaseous exchange that is going to take place, right? So guard cells that are there are kidney bean shaped cells. When water enters into the guard cell, they become turgid. That means that is when they get the kidney bean shape. Stomata is open, gaseous exchange happens. When it shrinks, shape is gone and it will become flaccid. So now are we clear when stomata will be open and when stomata will be closed? Yes or no? Yes? Are we clear? Ma'am, when diffusion is done, water, very good Pragati, very, very good. Ma'am, guard cells are rigid or not? Guard cells will be rigid. When guard cells are rigid, Rahul, that is when we see that stomata will be open. Yes? Creation of education. If you have not understood something, you ask me. There's no point in being rude in the live chat. I always tell you this. I am not being rude to you, no? I can also tell why did you not understand at one go, but that's not me as a teacher. So as a student, you should also tell me when you don't understand, rather than being mean. Okay. Very good, Shaurya. Very good. Dhana, it's okay. Okay, no issues. I'll explain once again. Tanushri, no problem. I'll explain once again. Just want to get an idea of how many students have understood this. Cool. Okay. Very good, all of you. Very, very. Explain once again. Definitely. Right? So whenever we draw stomata, how do we draw stomata? Yes, we always say that whenever I draw the stomata, I draw it something like this. Yes or no? I normally draw it like this. So this right here is, let's assume, is one single stomata. Now if you look at the structure of the stomata, we see that they are made up of these kidney shape. So these are these kidney bean shaped cells, right? Now we're going to give this a name, right? We're going to give this a name and we're going to call this as guard cells, right? So we're going to call this as guard cells. Now what is this, right? This right here, that is, there is the opening, right? So we can say that this right here is the stomatal pore. Now if I were to ask you what are the functions of stomata, what will you tell me? What are the functions, right? Functions of stomata include, you will tell me, ma'am, gaseous exchange, right? So we know that this right here is where gaseous exchange takes place. Yes? Then you will also tell me, ki, ma'am, transpiration bhi hota hai, but for now I'm going to hold out on transpiration because I would tell you that I'm going to for now hold out on transpiration, okay? But for now, let's focus on gaseous exchange, which means that for my gas to enter or exit, right? So let's assume this blue color is carbon dioxide. So for my carbon dioxide to enter, for photosynthesis to happen, right? And of course, for, let's say, oxygen to leave out or get out, there should be some space. This pore should be open, right? Pore should be open, yes or no? So if pore should be open, that means, or when will the pore be open? That is what we are explaining. When will the pore be open? Yes? What will help in making sure that the pore is open for gaseous exchange to happen? We see that the pore will be open when these kidney bean shaped cells, the guard cells, are turgid. Okay, so guard cells should be turgid. Now what do I mean by turgid? Turgid means that water has entered and the cells have a definite shape. So cells will be turgid when water enters into the cell by the process of osmosis. So that is what we understand as cells being turgid. Now it is not that stomata will be open 24/7. There will come a time when stomata has to close, right? So when will stomata close? Stomata will close when it has lost that kidney bean shaped cell or when it has become flaccid. When will it become flaccid? When all the water that was inside the guard cell, keeping it, mota and keeping it, in that kidney bean shaped structure, when all that water has gone, we say that it is flaccid and thereby it is closed. So are we clear? Yes? Are we all clear? Hello Somyus, I hope you're doing good. Long time. Yes. Okay. Very good. So now we are clear, right? Ma'am, why are they called guard cells? Do they protect? Yes, they do. See, guard cells are part of the stomatal structure, right? So they are a part of it that regulate the opening and closing. Yes? Ma'am, water and O2 are combined. Oh, I think Harsimran, you might have to go back because I erased that slide. Because it's a blank slide, right? I'm not able to save that. Yes? Dhanashri, Dhana, I hope you are all clear now. Ma'am, can you also draw the cross section? I have another diagram. I'll help you with that. Yes? Screenshot ke liye, please rewind back because I have deleted the slide and it's not going to come back. Yes. Mannat, yes they are, which I will again come back in greater detail. So in this particular case, so quickly to summarize, now your carbon dioxide and your water are combining in the presence of sunlight and chlorophyll, right? So we see that chlorophyll that is present in the chloroplast in order to produce food and of course give out oxygen as a byproduct. So this right here is what is photosynthesis and this is the chemical reaction for the same, right? So we will elaborate more on how exactly all this is happening, but I hope that all of you here have got a basic idea of it so far. Yes? Okay. I would love to teach in English if I knew Hindi pretty well. It's just that my Hindi is not that great and I don't want you all to feel like it's too much. So students, steps of photosynthesis is what I'm going to cover next. But I hope you had an overview of the process that carbon dioxide and water will combine in the presence of sunlight and chlorophyll, thereby giving us glucose, which is the food that we talk about, and oxygen as a byproduct. Yes? Okay. Yes. So now I have a set of questions which are PYQs. But before that, how many of you want a 5-minute break? 5-minute break, how many of you want? 5 to 10 minutes water break. And 5 minutes, okay, because I don't want to give you too long also. Jaldi I'll finish up the class after that. We will do questions, NCRT reading, uske baad we will finish. I'll give you 5 minutes water break. I also need, no? I'm also like you. Okay. So I'm going to quickly give you a 5-minute water break. And then we are going to resume, after which we are going to do steps of photosynthesis, and then we are also going to do activities. So what is pending, or what we will cover? We are going to cover steps, then we will also cover activities, and then we will wind up the class. Oh, and we'll also solve a lot of PYQs as well. Okay, it's fine. Yes. 8:05 p.m. we will resume. Okay? Come back at 8:05. Awesome. We will resume and we're going to continue all of these things. Okay guys, see you back in a bit. Hello everybody, we are back. Yes, are we back from our break? I hope that we all had water. I hope that we all rested well because now we're going to solve some questions. Yes? Okay, are we ready? Very quickly students, as I am back, I hope that my audio, my video and my screen and everything I'm writing is clear. I always love to check this because I don't want all of you to face any technical difficulties. Yes? See, the rest of it becomes easy because you understood the beginning, right? Otherwise, if I have not taught you from the beginning properly, then the rest of it becomes tough, right? Okay. Ma'am, pendings are easy. Arey, that's awesome. That it's easy for you. Is tomato open all the time? No, it is not open all the time. We see that opening and closing of stomata is regulated. So everyone, in the meanwhile, we're going to be solving some questions now. We're going to do BYJU'S. So first up, I have the first question. Yes. So this was there in 2023. This is a BYJ where we have a section of the leaf given to us. And you need to tell me or identify the cell or the part wherein massive amounts of gaseous exchange takes place. So quickly to recall, what is gaseous exchange? Gaseous exchange can be defined as the movement of gases simultaneously by the process of diffusion from a region of high concentration to low concentration. So when we talk about gaseous exchange, it is the movement of carbon dioxide and oxygen, right? So in photosynthesis, carbon dioxide goes from the outside to the inside. Oxygen is produced as a byproduct of photosynthesis, which is then given outside. So in this particular case, can you tell me which would be the correct answer? You have 1, 2, 3 and 4 options given to you. And now you have to tell me which is the correct option. So this is how your questions will come in the board exam. And trust me, I have not even taken old questions. I have taken only from 2023, 2024 primarily because 2023, 2024 have competency questions, right? Okay. I have answers coming between B, C, B, C. Pragati, you pay attention to class. C. Okay. Ma'am, D. 1 and 2. Very good, very good. Hi, intelligent boy. Hello. Yes, awesome. Many of you are saying C, but I can see some students who have gotten confused with B, right? Now, what is 1? 1 is the upper epidermis. Oops, just a second. 1 right here is the upper epidermis. Yes? So, why am I telling it is the upper epidermis? And this is how you will get the question in your boards, okay? Because you cannot see any stomata in it. Then you have 2 and 3. Now, 2 and 3 are both your mesophyll cells, right? So, 2 and 3 are your mesophyll cells. Then you have 4, which is specifically pointing towards the stomata. Now, when we talk about gaseous exchange, we know that movement of gases in and out of carbon dioxide and water. Where does that happen? That happens in the stomata, right? Stomata is what is responsible for gaseous exchange. So, correct answer is going to be option C, which says part 4. Now, you guys, whoever give me answer as B, which means 2 and 3. You have read the question as where does maximum amount of photosynthesis happens. Now the question was where does maximum amount of food get synthesized. Then if you tell me the answer is 2 and 3, okay. Because you know that your mesophyll cells have the chloroplast in it and that is where exactly you have this process taking place. But you need to read the question. Question is not asking you about where food is produced. Question is asking you where gaseous exchange happens. Which is why in this case the correct answer is option C. Yes. Okay, I will try to give you the polls in this because my laptop shut down. That's the problem. But I'll try to give you the poll. Okay, for the next question. So this right here is what came last year for your seniors. Stomata closes when? So you have 4 statements and you need to identify which is correct or which is or are correct and then tell me which is the correct answer. So let me give you a poll very quickly. Okay, I think I'll be able to give you a poll now. In the meanwhile, you can give me the answer. Yes, the poll is live, students. Chat में आंसर नहीं देना है, poll में आंसर दे दो. Thank you so much. We'll be starting history classes soon, so not to worry, right? Okay, I'm going to wait 2 minutes so that you all give me the answer, and then we're going to move to the explanation of it. So this is when we spoke about, so see, like I told you, opening and closing of stomata is a sure short question. You pull 2023 paper, 22 paper, you pull any board paper, this topic say you will get a question, right? Sundar, in single cell organism, the entire body is in contact. That is not the case. Entire body is in contact. Okay. Awesome, all of you, very good. I can see many of you here have given me the correct answer. So let me move the mouse and come all the way here. Now I can see that there is a good competition between C and B. C is the maximum. Then I can see some of you are getting confused with A. Some of you here have gotten confused here. I can see 7%, around 27%, another 11% here. But maximum of you have given me the answer correctly. Correct answer is option C. Now why? Why is the answer? See, in this particular case, stomata closes. So now they are talking about when the stomata is closed. When will stomata be closed? Stomata will not be closed when water flows into the guard cell. See, if water is flowing into the guard cell, it will have its beautiful kidney shape, right? Water will flow in and it will have its beautiful kidney shape. It is not this case. This is wrong. But when water flows out and it leaves, it becomes flaccid. So when it becomes flaccid, that is when the stomata closes. And in such case, what will happen? We know that the stomata will close when carbon dioxide is not needed. Stomata will not randomly close, right? When it's not needed or when carbon dioxide is not needed, that is when the stomata will close. Two conditions, which is why the correct answer is going to be option C, which is 2 and 3. So now are we clear with these concepts? I hope we are. We have had a look at some of the important concepts and what kind of questions you can expect in your board exam, right? Okay, very good all of you, very, very good. Now let's move on and deep dive into more on what is happening. So far we have seen that we have carbon dioxide which has entered into the leaf, right? Water which has come, they have all reached the mesophyll cell, and inside the mesophyll cell now, inside the chloroplast, right? So inside the chloroplast, we see that the photosynthesis process has to happen. Now, how exactly does this happen, right? How exactly does it happen? It happens in 3 steps, and we call this as the steps involved in photosynthesis. Now understand that this is a sure short question again. Everybody please star mark this. This is a sure short question that you can expect in your board examination. So how exactly does this happen, right? How does this process happening? First and foremost, step number 1 is that the chlorophyll that is there inside my chloroplast. The chlorophyll that is there inside my chloroplast will absorb the light energy. See, this is very, very important. Light energy from the sun is absorbed by the chlorophyll. This is not something that most pigments can do. This is a complex pigment which will absorb the light energy, and that is why whenever I define photosynthesis, I always tell you that it is something we see wherein green plants are there. That means chlorophyll has to be there to do step number 1. That is absorb the light energy, right? So now we have absorbed the light energy. Who is absorbing light energy? Your chlorophyll is going to absorb the light energy. Now what will it do, right? What is it going to do after absorbing this light energy? You see, your raw materials have reached, your carbon dioxide and water. Now what it will do is, it will use this energy to split the water molecules, right? So step number 2 here is conversion of light energy into chemical. And when I say that, we see here that your water molecules will split. So when it splits, what will happen? It is going to split into its respective atoms, right? So in this particular case, when it splits down, you will get an equation of this sort, right? So you will get the hydrogen ions, then you see that oxygen is there, then along with that some electrons are also given out, right? Or it can be rewritten as water splitting down into 2 hydrogen ions plus 2 electrons plus half a molecule of oxygen. So this right here, because oxygen atom cannot be stable, right? So this light energy, yes, this light energy is used for the splitting of water molecules, right? So this is the accurate chemical reaction which they will not ask you in the board exam, but nonetheless I am teaching it to you. Yes. So in this particular case, this process of splitting of water molecules in the presence of light is what we call as photolysis, right? Photolysis is the process by which water molecules are split with the help of this light energy. And from this, at the end of it, what do we obtain? We see that we end up getting hydrogen ions and our byproduct is coming. So oxygen is what we get from the water molecules, right? So if they ask you, from where does the oxygen come from as a byproduct? It comes from the water molecules when they are split. And in this case, for water molecules to split, light is necessary, right? So light is necessary, yes or no? We require light, which is why we call this as the light dependent phase. Now this is not there in NCERT, it is an extra information I am telling you. This right here is the light dependent phase of photosynthesis, right? So in this particular case, we see that for the splitting of water, since light is necessary, we call it as the light dependent phase. Yes or no? Are we all clear? Yes, I hope we are clear with this. Yes or no? Rate of photosynthesis does more light energy, faster the process, but it will stagnate after one point. Okay? No problem, Pallavi. No problem, Shiva. Yes. Okay. Are we clear as to what is photolysis? They can ask you. This is step number 2. Please take a screenshot, right? So this right here is step 2. Let me write this down. Step 2 here is conversion of light energy into chemical, right? And what do we see here? There is splitting of water molecules into hydrogen and oxygen. Yes? Okay. Ma'am, what if the leaf doesn't get carbon dioxide and water enters the guard cell? The guard cell will still swell up, bacha. It's not like, see, it is not that if guard cell opens, carbon dioxide is waiting to enter. That's not how it happens. You are thinking of it as a one after the other event. Think of it as how we breathe. It is not that oxygen is waiting to enter into our body, right? Oxygen molecules are waiting right here. So it's a physical process that keeps happening, which is regulated by various activities. So that is the same with respect to your guard cells also. Have you all taken a screenshot? Shall I change it? Yes? Shall I move on? Next. Okay? So this is step number 2. Can you give me a quick CC to let me know that you've all taken a screenshot or you've all written down the important pointers? I hope we are clear. I can see that many of you are clear. So Santoshi, you can take a screenshot right away. I hope you have already taken it, right? Okay. So that is step number 2. So here from your water molecules, you've got your oxygen. Now through a series of reactions, we see that this carbon dioxide that is there gets reduced. Now remember I told you what is reduction? Reduction is a chemical process wherein either there is removal of oxygen or of course we see that there is addition of hydrogen, right? So if there is addition of hydrogen ions, we say that it is reduction. So to your carbon dioxide, what is happening? Through a series of steps, it forms glucose, which now has, let me just write this down properly. So which now has hydrogen in it. So C6H12O6. which is why we use the word reduction. So here your carbon dioxide is what is getting reduced and forming carbohydrates in the form of glucose. So in this particular case, if you see, right, we see that green plants prepare their own food by combining carbon dioxide and water, now in the presence of sunlight and chlorophyll, in order to give us glucose, which is a 6-carbon molecule, right, and oxygen as a byproduct. Now, how exactly does this happen? It starts with the absorption of light energy by chlorophyll. Where am I finding my chlorophyll? In the chloroplast, right? And we know that once the light energy is absorbed, it is converted to chemical. Now, you're asking me, what is this chemical energy? So, you saw, right, formation of the hydrogen ions, electrons getting released. That is energy that you find in those chemicals, right, or in those ions, right? Which is why in this case, water molecules is then split, yes? And eventually carbon dioxide gets reduced to carbohydrates. Now this right here is the balanced chemical equation. You can all take a screenshot, yes? Now I understand that Sharanya, I assume that there are some issues that you have faced with the kit. So I would sincerely recommend that you send an email to our YouTube channel, or you let me know in the comments of this video. We will take a screenshot and pass it forward to the necessary teams. I'm super sorry that you had to face this inconvenience due to many reasons. Probably you are facing it, and I'm really sorry that you faced it, but I will try my best to help you out in whatever way possible. Yes? Okay, are we clear? Ma'am, chemical energy क्या बन रहा है? Students, think of it as light energy that is. So when you talk about energy, we know that energy is neither created nor destroyed. It can only get converted from one form to another. So whatever energy you find in those photons, right, it will now move into the ions and the electrons that are there. That will then get passed on from one after the other through these chemical reactions. So energy gets converted. It is not that, so think of it as how we say ATP is the energy currency. This is a chemical, but that it has the ability to use itself in order through breaking of bonds or through formation of bonds. You will understand that energy gets transferred. Yes? This is the balanced equation for photosynthesis, everybody. You can take a quick screenshot. Yes, once you have taken a screenshot, you can let me know. Yes? Let me know once the screenshot is done. I will move on to the next part. And if you are enjoying the class, please don't forget to hit the like button on this video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because I see very few of you have liked the video. Very bad, huh? We should make it to at least 400 likes. Yes. So in this particular case, we see that this reduction, I missed this part. Many of you are asking me, this part, reduction of carbon dioxide into carbohydrates, right? We see that this does not require any light energy, right? So we say that this right here is the dark phase or the light independent phase of photosynthesis. Independent means it does not need it. It is independent of light, right? Is it necessary to write balanced equation? Very necessary. You'll end up losing marks if it is not balanced. Yes? Okay. Moving on, all of you, I'll quickly summarize, right? So quickly to summarize, I'm going to do it once again. Photosynthesis is the process by which green plants prepare their own food using carbon dioxide and water. They combine in the presence of sunlight and chlorophyll, giving us glucose and oxygen. Now, how exactly are your carbon dioxide and water combining? That takes place in the 3 steps mentioned here. Step number 1, your chlorophyll that I find in the chloroplast will absorb the light energy. Once the light energy is absorbed, it will convert it to chemical energy. How? It will use this energy to split the water molecule into the respective hydrogen-oxygen ions. And eventually your oxygen atoms will combine to form your oxygen molecule, which is nothing but your gaseous oxygen, right? Now what will happen? We see that the remaining bit of it is to convert carbon dioxide into carbohydrate. So your glucose comes from the carbohydrate, yes? And it's not a single step process. Many steps are there. But of course, we see that eventually we get your glucose, right? And small amount of water is given out as byproduct as well. Now, when you talk about autotrophs, here we see that autotrophs can be of 2 kinds. Now, what we saw right now was an example of a green plant. Yes, green plant using light energy in order to prepare food, right? So when they use light energy, we call them as a photoautotroph. This is not there in your textbook. This is some extra information. This is extra. It's not there in NCERT. Okay? So if you think about it, your cyanobacteria, your green plants, they all come under the category of photoautotrophs because they do photosynthesis, right? Because they do photosynthesis. But does this mean that food is always prepared with carbon dioxide and water? That is not the case, right? We see that sometimes certain sulfur bacteria, certain other kinds of bacteria, not iron bacteria, but we see sulfur bacteria that are there, right? What they do? They use chemical raw materials, right? So they use chemical raw materials and they synthesize their own food. And we call them as chemoautotrophs. And this process as chemosynthesis, right? So photosynthesis is one type in which they prepare their own food. But chemosynthesis is another type where chemicals are used as raw materials, not just light, right? So this way we see that autotrophic mode of nutrition has two kinds. We have photoautotrophs and chemoautotrophs. Or I can say we have photosynthesis and we have chemosynthesis. Yes? Okay. Are we clear, all of you? See, Pavitra, light and dark reaction is not there in NCERT, so don't worry about it. But basically, your first two steps where we use light energy to split the water molecule, we call that as a light phase of the photosynthesis. Dark phase is where light energy is not used, right? So in this case, we call this as the dark reaction where there is reduction of carbohydrates. Now the next question that you are asking me, which Mannat was asking me is, ma'am, why are we not using light energy to split carbon dioxide? Because think about it. Water requires large amounts of energy to be split. So in order to combine, right? So in order to combine, we see that large amounts of energy is needed, which comes from the light energy. Which is why in this case, that light energy is directed towards splitting of water molecules. But once it is split, these hydrogen ions are then going to go through various reactions, will then join in and it will get reduced. That is why in this case, we see that the step number 1 for splitting of water molecules, we use the light energy. Okay? Now very quickly students, now that we have gone through so much information, isn't it time for us to do NCERT reading, right? Time for us to do NCERT reading. So can you all please make sure you have your textbooks open with you? Yes? Please have your textbooks open where we're going to quickly go through the NCERT, starting with 5.2 where we have nutrition, right? I've already recorded a separate video, Harsimran, which is available in the channel. But today I will cover the activity also. Or do you want me to do activities in a separate class? I don't mind actually. I have the activities ready with me today, but I think that finishing it off at one go is going to be good, right? Let's not wait for another day to do the activities. No? Yeah, we will do it today only. Very good. ठीक है, awesome. Now all of you, please have your NCERT open. We're going to do the NCERT reading together. So in this case, we know that we require materials from the outside in order to grow, develop, synthesize proteins and other substances needed for the body. And this source of energy, right? So we see that this source of energy and materials is the food that we eat. Yes? So in this case, what do you observe? We know that for general requirement of energy and materials, we see that it's common. Carbohydrates is needed for energy. Proteins needed for bodybuilding. We know that, let's say, fats are needed for other things. This remains common. But what happens is that different organisms fulfill it in different ways. Some use inorganic sources to form, some make their own food from inorganic sources like carbon dioxide and water, which include green plants and some bacteria. While what do the others do? They are dependent on other organisms where they break it down into simpler ones before they can actually utilize it. And this, they use biocatalysts called enzymes and all of that, right? So what is autotrophic mode of nutrition? So we see that carbon and energy requirements in such organisms, they prepare their own food, right? So we see that they prepare their own food, and how do they do that? By the process of photosynthesis, wherein they convert substances from the outside, right? So they convert substances from the outside and store it in their body. So what do they use? They use carbon dioxide and water and convert it to carbohydrates in the presence of sunlight and chlorophyll. And in this particular case, we see that the carbohydrates are not used. This, of course, I am going to cover once again anyway. Carbohydrates are not used immediately, which means that the glucose that they produce, they will not just keep producing glucose and keep utilizing it. There is going to be a point where they will have to store it in their body, right? So they store it in what form? They store it in the form of starch. So this point is also pretty important, right? They store it in their body in the form of starch. And then of course they use it as an internal energy reserve. Now in our body, what is our internal energy reserve? In our body, we store it as glycogen. Yes? So this is one thing to remember. Now this right here is the equation for photosynthesis, which all of you can highlight and underline it. And these are the three important steps: absorption of light energy, conversion into chemical and splitting of water molecules, and reduction. Now remember that it is not always that it takes place one after the other, right? We see that it differs in some cases. In the case of desert plants, which I will cover again once towards the end, in the case of desert plants, it happens slightly differently. But because I'm not going to come back to this paragraph, all of you please highlight this point on desert plants, because they can ask you in the exam for 2 marks, right? This will come for 2 marks, where they will ask you to write about how does photosynthesis or the process of photosynthesis differ in desert plants when compared to normal plants. So they can ask you this difference. So please underline and keep it carefully. Then of course, if you see here, we see that if you observe the cross section of the microscope, you will see that some cells have green dots in them, right? These green dots are chloroplasts, which have chlorophyll in it. And of course, this right here is essential. Now, moving to the last part. This is where we spoke about the opening and closing of stomata. Stomata are the tiny pores which are present, and massive amounts of gaseous exchange takes place through these pores. Now, it is important to note that gaseous exchange not only happens through the stomata, but can happen through the stem and the leaf, right? I mean stem and roots. So, in the stem, if you see, so if you take the case of the stem, we have specialized structures called as lenticels. Today my handwriting is very bad. In the case of stem, we see that there are these lenticels, structures with gaseous exchange, and in roots, we see that there are these pores through which gaseous exchange can take place. Yes? And of course, we see that in this particular case, gaseous exchange happens in this manner. Now, of course, the opening and closing is a function of the guard cell, right? Now, this was the paragraph that we discussed, wherein when guard cell swells, water flows into them, causing it to open. While it closes, guard cells are shrinking. So, this, of course, are the important pointers from NCERT. Yes? Fatima, we will update the schedule on the channel. Please don't mind. We will do it pretty soon. Okay? See, transpiration, I'll tell you why I have not touched transpiration and sufficient gaseous exchange. 2 reasons. One being that sufficient gaseous exchange wala point comes more in the ideology of respiration. So I will cover that when I deal with concept of respiration, because there will come a contradiction between photosynthesis versus respiration in plants, right? So then it will make more sense to you. Shaurya, I hope I have answered the question. Secondly, why is NCERT reading important? NCERT reading is important because sometimes, especially with assertion reason questions, there are words taken right off NCERT. Sometimes NCERT is also vague in itself, okay? There are a lot of things which NCERT is very vague about. It's not very clear. Because of which what happens, if you are thorough with your NCERT, it makes solving assertion reason easier. Yes? I will teach you everything. Don't worry. Everything I will do. Double circulation, all of that. Right? Okay. See, Calvin cycle that is there is something that you will learn in your higher grades, right? So Calvin cycle is basically the light independent reaction that I told you about, where your carbon dioxide is getting converted into your carbohydrates. That is part, or it's part of it. Yes? Okay. So quickly everybody, to go through some of the points that I have just discussed, right? So we know that end of the day, at the end of photosynthesis, what are we getting? We are getting glucose, right? Now glucose is then utilized for various metabolic activities. Now when glucose needs to be utilized, we see that excess of glucose, right? So excess of glucose gets stored as an internal reserve called as starch. Yes? And if I need to use it again, I will convert it to sucrose, which is another form of carbohydrate. Yes? Now, why is this concept of sucrose important? When you learn transportation, when you learn phloem, xylem and all, you will realize that plants are not transporting it as glucose. They are only producing food in the form of glucose. But it is transported as sucrose, it is stored as starch. So they make it into more complex form, which makes it easy. Yes? Now, where does this get stored? This gets stored sometimes in the stem, it can get stored in the roots, starch can be found even in the fruit, right? It can be stored in different parts. And it's used for various metabolic activities. What are metabolic activities? Now you know why I taught you metabolism in bridge session. Because this word metabolic activity is going to keep coming over and over. So metabolic activities are those activities which include all the different chemical reactions that take place in the plant, right? So here you should know the internal energy reserve. In plants it is starch, while in animals what is it? In animals or in our body it is glycogen. So they can ask you the difference between starch and glycogen. Yes? Okay. Assimilation is basically the utilization. How is glucose used? How is glucose utilized? Very, very important. For those of you who are asking me about question banks, I would suggest that wait for some time till your sample papers come out. If you haven't checked out my video on resources, please watch that video. I've explained it very clearly. Yes? Okay. Now last bit of the chapter which I'm going to quickly take is only glucose needed. Plant is making its own food, but plant is making it in the case of glucose. Is only glucose necessary? Nothing else is needed by the plant, right? Plant does not require anything else. Is that the case? Glucose is going to do everything for the plant? Yes or no? What do you think? Glucose is sufficient. इसके बाद कुछ नहीं चाहिए. Glycogen in our body stored in skeletal muscles, various places. Nirmala, we'll learn more, don't worry. Okay. Sanu, Sanvi, all of you love the fact that you're socializing, right? Very, very happy, but please pay attention in class or you leave the class. See, 10th standard May, we are all very happy to socialize. I'm also very happy that you socialize and be friends with each other. Love the fact that you are all very open, but not in my class. Exactly. No, you think it is going to be enough. We will survive only with carbohydrates. Absolutely not, right? We also require other nutrients. We require proteins. We need to have other substances. We need the minerals also, right? So if you think about it, when roots absorb water, is it absorbing only water? Or do we say that it absorbs water and minerals, right? So we never say that roots absorb water, but we say it absorbs water and minerals. Especially we have nitrogen, phosphorus, iron, potassium, magnesium, so many other substances. Now if you think about nitrogen, it is pretty important, right? It is essential for synthesis of proteins. It is essential for synthesizing important components, even like chlorophyll. Which is why we see that all of these substances are then taken up from the soil. And then they will utilize all of this in order to synthesize substances, right? So in the last paragraph, they have given you this one pointer. Other materials, right? So we see that other materials like nitrogen, nitrogen, phosphorus, iron, magnesium. We see that they are all taken up from the soil, which is needed for the synthesis of proteins and other compounds. And we see that this is obtained in the form of nitrates or nitrites. Grade 8 information on nitrogen cycle. Yes, so here we see that it is obtained as nitrates and nitrites, or it can be taken up as certain organic compounds which are prepared by bacteria, where they convert your atmospheric nitrogen into usable forms. Yes? Ma'am, is ATP molecules also required? ATP gets utilized for certain steps, but it depends. We are not going into the details of it, right? Okay. So are we clear? Are we all clear? Shall we solve some more questions? Yes? Okay. Shall we solve some more questions and then wind up? Are we ready for it? I will give you poll also so that you guys don't fall asleep. Yes, I know I look like Rashmika, thank you. But please don't get distracted. Reference books, Neha, I have already done it. Please, it's there on it's a recorded video which is available on the channel, right? Okay. I prefer Oswald over anything because I feel Oswald questions are really good. Okay. Moving on to the next question, all of you. This is the first one which is going to be there. I'm going to quickly give you a poll. Okay. The internal cellular energy reserve in autotrophs, right? Internal cellular energy reserve in autotrophs is dash. Glycogen, protein, starch, fatty acid. Yes? Will this come in NEET? This is forming fundamentals for NEET, right? Thank you so much, Kritika. Thank you so much. Yes. Question is there on the screen. Internal energy reserve, right? Okay. Awesome. Very good, all of you. This is very simple and easy. Internal energy reserve here in plants. We're talking about in autotrophs. It is nothing but starch, right? But if the question was in animals, then what would be the answer? If the answer was going to be animals, what would be the answer? Very good, all of you. Menti we will do later. Let me finish. I'll finish 2-3 topics and then give you Menti. Because after this we have digestion also. Uske baad I think animals also C. Very good. Animal also plant starch. Plant also starch. Nice. Is that the case? No. I just told you. This is a question you will get. Internal energy reserve, or that means basically how is food stored in my body. In plants it is going to be starch. In animals it is going to be glycogen. I made you underline this also. Yes, so remember this, it is glycogen. Don't forget because you can get confused. Yes, awesome. Next question. Which among the following, so let me where is it? I'll end the poll and let's move on to the next one. Choose the event that does not occur during photosynthesis. You have 4 options from which you need to tell me which is the correct answer. So let's start the poll. Absorption of light energy, reduction of carbon dioxide to carbohydrate, oxidation of carbon to carbon dioxide, or conversion of light into chemical energy. Naman, I think if you are facing some issues, let me know in the comments of this video. We will forward it to the respective teams. I think there are some slight glitches due to which it's starting slightly late, right? But nonetheless, our team will reach out to you pretty soon. Really sorry for the inconvenience that was caused. Yes, Nivedita, when glucose gets transported, it's actually in the form of sucrose, right? Is it? Everything answer, all the answers are C. I did not know that. But very good. You know that in this particular case, the correct answer here is going to be option C, right? So we know that this right here is step number 1, this is step number 2, and this is step number 3. And in no place do we see that oxidation of carbon to carbon dioxide is happening. Yes? Okay. Now let's go on to the next question. Yes? Let's go on to the next question. oxygen liberated during photosynthesis comes from where? Does it come from the water? Does it come from the chlorophyll? Does it come from the carbon dioxide? Or is it coming from glucose? What is the answer? Shrishti, now we are only solving questions. In the meanwhile, students, I hope all of you have hit the like button on the video. Yes, I need to have minimum 400 likes on this video, right? Jaldi like this video if you still haven't. Okay. Very good, very good. Super proud to see the answer, but still some confusion with carbon dioxide as an answer, right? So we know that step number 1 in photosynthesis is absorption of light energy, right, by chlorophyll. Then what does it do? It will use this light energy. I'm just going to put Le and convert it to chemical energy. How? By the splitting of water molecules, right? So we get this particular equation, you all remember. And then of course in the end we see that the oxygen atoms will combine, giving you oxygen, which is the byproduct. Which is why in this case the correct answer is option A, which is water. Yes? Very good. Now let's move on to the next question, right? So I'm going to give you another poll. Today, see, lot of practice. Today is not just about studying and forgetting. Today is about studying and recalling all the concepts that we have studied. So practice is what makes us perfect. And if you start practice from day 1, board exam is going to be a cakewalk. And you can ask your seniors also. Biology will be the easiest for you. That is my guarantee. You watch our videos, you are sorted. Okay. Very good, all of you. Very good. Kavya, that is all about positive thinking and goal setting, right? You should always set your goals there so that you achieve it. Okay. Proteins, choose the forms in which plants absorb nitrogen. Proteins, nitrate, nitrites, urea or atmospheric nitrogen. Okay. Very good, students. Very good. I can see the answers coming. Ma'am, polls are coming before. Polls are coming before because there's a slight stream delay. So as I set things, as I'm setting it from my end, it's happening a little faster. Very good, all of you. Very good. Super proud of the answers coming my way. Deepak Shah, metabolism is whatever chemical reaction is happening in the body, right? Whatever chemical reaction, whether it's digestion, respiration, any other chemical process, all of that is metabolism. Sum total of chemical reactions. Class 9 session, Anil, most likely there'll be a recorded video that will come out this week. Like I said, there are some technical difficulties in the studio, hoping to take the class as soon as possible. We'll keep you updated. Okay. Awesome. Very good. I can see that majority of you have given me the correct answer. And the correct answer is option B, right? Proteins cannot absorb, plants cannot absorb proteins, right? They use proteins. They cannot use atmospheric nitrogen, which is why that whole nitrogen cycle we learnt in grade 8, right? We know that atmospheric nitrogen cannot be directly utilized by plants, which is why there is a need to convert them into usable forms, which we call as nitrogen fixation. Yes? If you don't remember this, please go watch a beautiful video of mine on nitrogen cycle. So how can they utilize it? They can use it in the form of nitrates and nitrites. And then of course we see that urea, right? Fertilizers, one type of fertilizer is urea, which is easily absorbable by the plant. Which is why in this case the correct answer is 2 and 3. Correct answer is option B. So those of you who told me ki ma'am proteins will be utilized directly, that is not the case. Why not 2 and 4? It is because atmospheric nitrogen cannot use it directly. That is why. Yes? Awesome. Now my question to all of my live students here, I know that people who watch the recorded video would prefer this, but for students, how about all my live audience here? how about we finish off the concept of photosynthesis with the last two topics, which is activities and desert plants concept. Shall we finish it today itself? I might take another 15 to 20 more minutes, but shall we get started? Shall we finish it off today itself? Once and for all. See, if you are not able to understand it now, you can come back and watch the video later also. That will definitely help you. But shall we finish it today? Yes, once and for all, pura ka pura, we will do it, because activities, especially from photosynthesis, activity 5.1 and 5.2 are pretty important, which is why I would love to finish the whole chunk. See, as a concept, if you finish it off at one go, no, it'll be done, ho gaya, easy. Yes? Hello Rupinder, you're preparing for NEET. All the very best. I hope you do well. I hope you crack NEET, and I know you will do well. Okay. I know, I told you minimum 2 hours, right? For, you can ask your seniors, I told them that I will take a 5-hour class, and I ended up making 5 hours into 10 hours. So I am the kind of person who's very bad with timing. Just saying. Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to end the polls and we're going to move on. So now for the next, right? So for the next one, what we're going to do is, when we're doing the next set of concepts, you're going to do activities based on photosynthesis, right? So activities, are activities asked in the exam? Activities are definitely asked, which is why what I would want all of you to do right now is to make sure that you have your textbook open with you and you write some of the important pointers. So I will discuss this with the NCERT snip as well, so that side by side we are able to discuss the important pointers. Have some post-its in your hand so that we can discuss it together. Yes? Okay, so let's have a look at the first activity, which is 5.1. Now the idea of activity 5.1 is to test the presence of chlorophyll, or is to prove that chlorophyll is essential for the process of photosynthesis, and without chlorophyll, process of photosynthesis cannot happen. Yes? So here we are going to use a variegated leaf, right? So here what are we going to use? We are going to use a variegated leaf. So can any of you tell me what do we mean by a variegated leaf? Yes? First and foremost, write down what is a variegated leaf. Now variegated leaf are those leaves with different color zones, right? That means that there are parts of the leaf which are green in color, and there are parts of the leaf which are non-green, right? So we have parts which are green in color and parts of the leaf which are going to be non-green. So this is what we need to understand as variegated leaf. Yes? Bunny Cook is also my senior here. Very happy to see you. Love the fact that you're dropping by during class, right? Yes. Now, this is what we understand as a variegated leaf, or you can say pigmented. I will not really use that word because you need to say that there is a difference in green and non-green regions, right? So we are going to take a plant with a potted plant with variegated leaf. For example, sometimes there are certain money plants and crotons which are said to be examples of the same. Now what are we going to do? We are going to keep this particular plant, this potted plant, in a dark room. So I am going to take this plant and I am going to keep it in a dark room for how many days? I am going to keep it for 3 days. Now why am I doing this? I am doing this because I want to make sure that my plant is using all the starch. Now see, when I keep my plant in a dark room, what happens? We see that it has now, can it do photosynthesis? No. It cannot do photosynthesis, right? And because it cannot do photosynthesis, what will happen? It has to use up all its internal energy reserve, right? It needs to use all of its internal energy reserve, which is why in this case we see that it will use all the plants. It will use up all the starch, which is why we call this step as de-starching, right? What do we call this step as? We call this step as de-starching step. De-starching is the process of using up all the starch. Yes? Now after de-starching, so what have I done? I have taken a variegated leaf and then I have kept it in dark room. Okay, I have done destarching, and now it is a destarched potted plant. Now destarched potted plant, after I take it out of destarching, I will keep it in sunlight for 6 hours. So dark room say I have brought it out and now I am keeping it under sunlight. Now why am I doing this? So that photosynthesis will happen, right? So I am keeping it for 6 hours so that photosynthesis will be taking place. Now once this happens, right? So once this happens, what do we observe? Yes, what do we observe? We will see that we will take one leaf from this potted plant. So let me just have a look at the screen. Okay, screen looks fine. So I will take one single leaf and then I am going to mark the green areas. That means wherever are my green areas, I will mark them with a marker. Okay? I will mark and keep it. So this is what I will do next. After doing this, right? After doing this, I am going to dip it in boiling water. Now this step is important because they can ask you, why are we keeping it in boiling water? What is the reason? We keep it in boiling water to kill all the cells, right? So when I keep it in boiling water, I am going to kill all the cells. And when I kill all the cells, what will happen? All the content will come out. Yes? I will make sure that it breaks or ruptures the cells. And once I do this, I will immediately put it in alcohol. Now why am I putting it in alcohol? I am putting it in alcohol to remove. So I'm going to write this outside the box. So let me, just one moment. Yes. Now why am I doing this? I am doing this to ensure that I remove the chlorophyll. So we use boiling water in order to kill the cells. Then we immerse it in alcohol to get rid of the chlorophyll. Why should I get rid of the chlorophyll? I should get rid of the chlorophyll mainly because further photosynthesis should not happen. 6 hours I did it. Now time to get rid of it so that further it does not hamper with my reaction, right? And in the end, I will keep it in cold water bath and heat it, right? So when I immerse it in a beaker containing alcohol, I have to keep it in a double boiler. I cannot just directly boil alcohol. That's not going to happen. After this, what will happen? The color of the leaf and the color of the solution will change. Now the leaf will no longer have that green color and all the chlorophyll will be now, the color of the solution will become like one dark greenish brownish color. Yes? Now once I do all these steps into my portions which I marked as green. So imagine if this is my leaf, right? If this is my leaf, my variegated leaf. Yes? These are all my earlier green portion. These were my earlier green portion. Now what will I do? I will add a few drops of iodine, right? So now I'm going to add a few drops of iodine to these parts, okay? So this is my non-green part and this is my green part. Now what will I observe? I will see that wherever the green parts were there, brown color iodine turned blue-black in color, while here there will be no change. Now why are we adding iodine in the first place? Can any of you tell me? Yes? Yes or no? What has happened here? See, Hemant Bacha, I am telling you, whatever you are telling, it's such an outdated comment first and foremost. Secondly, you are in 10th standard, board exam essay, you will write the answer. That is not the case, right? So I am just telling you for your benefit that if you want to get good marks, make your parents proud, make yourself proud, then pay attention in class. Don't waste your time doing all this. It's not fun. So far, are you all clear? Yes? Are you all clear? Very good. To test for starch, right? So what are we doing here? We are now testing for starch. Yes? So we are now testing for the presence of starch. So in this particular case, we see that only in the green regions, there is a color change from brown to blue-black. Why is this happening? It's because in the green regions, photosynthesis has happened, right? Photosynthesis has happened. They produced glucose, right? And excess of glucose was stored as starch. While in the non-green regions, photosynthesis did not take place. Yes? Which is why in this case we see that in different parts we observe different color. Thereby we can conclude here that chlorophyll is essential. Now they can ask you questions. I have a question for you where they'll ask you, what is a variegated leaf? Why are we boiling it in water? Why are we boiling it in alcohol? What is the end result? What are we testing for? Which is why I am making you write it all down next to each other. Why are we boiling it in that water? It's very, very important, right? Leaf is boiled in water in order to kill the cells. It is boiled in spirit or alcohol to remove the chlorophyll. Yes? Then what will happen? We see that it is placed in warm water to soften the cells. Then we test it with iodine solution. So are we all clear with exercise activity 5.1? Yes or no? See, first I will do it. See, first learn concept by concept. Then we will do full chapter. First you learn concept by concept. Yes? Hansika, I understand that you are facing some issues, so I request you to let me know in the comments of this video. We will definitely address it. Yes? Awesome. Now let's go on to the second activity, which is going to be activity 5.2, right? Now activity 5.2 is normally asked in combination with respiration topic, but not to worry, it's pretty simple only, even if they ask you with respiration, right? So here they're asking you why carbon dioxide is necessary for photosynthesis. So here there is a very important thing that you need to remember, that is using a chemical called as potassium hydroxide. Now potassium hydroxide has the ability to absorb carbon dioxide. So this is something that you need to remember. So what are you going to do? Initial steps are the same. Take two plants. Two potted plants, we will call it as A and B, right? So we will take two potted plants A and B. You will keep them in dark room for 3 days. Why are we doing this? For destarching process to happen. Then what will I do after 3 days of destarching? I will bring it back. Then for plant pot A, I am going to keep potassium hydroxide in a petri dish. Plant B, I am going to leave it as it is. Now what do you see? Potassium hydroxide is used to absorb carbon dioxide. Now I am covering it with a bell jar. Now why am I covering it with a bell jar? Yes? Why am I covering with bell jar? How many of you can give me the answer to this? Why are we covering it with a bell jar? Yes? What is the reason for covering it with a bell jar? Can't I just do the experiment as it is? What is the reason? Yes? Yes or no? Very quickly. Ascoril, I'm going to take your doubt. Very good question, which is why I'm going to take it in some time. I'll finish this and then I'm going to do it. To make it airtight. Very good, Shaurya. Very good, Spurti. Very, very good. So we are going to make it airtight so that carbon dioxide from the outside is not going to interfere with my experiment, right? So here, what are we here to prove? We are here to prove that carbon dioxide is needed. And I am adding an agent which absorbs the carbon dioxide. So I need to show that if carbon dioxide is not there, photosynthesis is not going to happen, right? Which is why in this particular case, we are covering it with a bell jar to make it airtight and to ensure that outside air does not enter inside. Yes? Very simple and easy. Now after doing this, I will use a Vaseline seal to ensure that it is airtight. After this, I will keep it in sunlight for 2 hours. Then after keeping it in sunlight, I will take leaf A and then I will take leaf B and I will do iodine test. Now can you tell me which leaf will turn positive for iodine starch test? In which leaf do we see that there is a change in color, right? So in which leaf do we see that there is a change in color from brown to blue black, A or B? In A or B, which will turn blue black? A or B? Yes? Rahul, you be my best friend. Now you pay attention in class. Ma'am, same. 2. Very good, Shivan. Shruti, ma'am, what is the meaning of alkaline? Alkaline means that the pH is beyond 7, right? More compounds which have like hydroxide in them, right? So in acid, bases and salts, you would have learned about you will learn about a pH scale, right? Basically concentration of your hydrogen ions. More of it, if it is lesser than 7, then it is acidic. Greater, then it is basic or alkaline. It is going to be B. Why? See, in A, you put potassium hydroxide, which absorbed all my carbon dioxide, which means has photosynthesis even happened in A? Has photosynthesis even happened in A? It has not, right? Photosynthesis has not happened because potassium hydroxide has absorbed the carbon dioxide. Now in B, what has happened? Even though I did destarching and all of that, I still saw that there's nothing, whatever carbon dioxide was utilized by the plant for photosynthesis, which means that photosynthesis happened, glucose was produced, starch was formed. So when I add iodine to it, it will turn positive for starch test. Yes? Potassium hydroxide is KOH. This is the formula, which is why in this case, we see here that both A and B, B will turn positive for starch test. Are we clear? Yes? Are you all clear with this concept? Why we are doing what we are doing? Yes? Yes or no? Quick thumbs up. Everything is good to go. Respiration in another class. Not today. Okay. So this right here is a PYQ that we have based on this activity that came last year, right? So this right here is going to be your, I don't want to give it to you as your homework question, but it's okay. We'll do it together. See, this is what I was telling you. What is a variegated leaf? A variegated leaf is a type of leaf which has different color zones. It means that there is both green and non-green plants, right? Give an example. We see that money plant, crotons are all examples of the same. This is from activity 5.1. Next, when leaf is boiled in alcohol, what happens to the color of the leaf and color of the solution? Exactly from your NCRT. It has come directly. Yes? Last bit, in what form is carbohydrate stored in the plant? It is stored in the form of starch. Why is it essential? Why is chlorophyll essential? Can you tell me? This you give me the answer. Why is chlorophyll essential for photosynthesis? You should be able to give me the answer to this. Very good, all of you. Very, very good. Awesome. I can see that all of you here are giving me the answer. See, now you know how exactly or what exactly they are going to ask you in the examination, right? So in this particular case, why is chlorophyll necessary? Chlorophyll here is necessary primarily because it is responsible for the absorption of light energy, right? So it traps the light energy. Very, very good. Now as Coral asked me a question. Ma'am, in a variegated leaf, you are saying only green part is going to turn positive for the green part will turn positive for starch test. But you also know that starch can be stored in non-green plants. So how would that be possible? So that is where the destarching step comes into the picture. Why did we destarch it for 3 days? So that whatever reserve energy is there in the plant gets utilized completely so that it does not interfere with the test, right? That's why we make sure that all the starch gets utilized and then we do the active test, right? So that is what is important. Now the last topic that we're going to do is the concept of desert plants, right? Now we saw that in most cases, we know that during the day, we know that is when photosynthesis happens because light energy is a must. So during that time, sunlight is available. We know that, stomata is open, carbon dioxide enters, all is happy and good in most normal plants, right? But in the case of desert plants, what happens? We know that desert plants are found in places with extreme climatic conditions. That means that if the stomata is open during the day, large amount of water will also be lost in the form of transpiration. And they have to conserve as much water as possible, which is why during the day desert plants have a slightly different adaptation. Now what they do, we see that desert plants keep the stomata shut during the day. So they keep their stomata closed during the day so that they can avoid loss of water. And instead what do? They open the stomata at night. Now here what will happen? Here they will take up the carbon dioxide. And what they will do, they will convert it to an intermediate, right? So they will convert it into an intermediate product and they will store it in their body. So that during the day what happens? During the day they use the light energy to split the water molecules and then convert this intermediate into glucose. So here they adapt to themselves by ensuring, right? They will make an intermediate instead. Yes? Okay. So in this particular case, as you all see, in desert plants, tomatoes close during the day and open during the night. They take the carbon dioxide at night, convert it into an intermediate product called as malic acid or a malate, and then later on in the morning, they use the light energy to split the water and then the process continues. Yes? Okay. So I hope all of you are clear with the concepts. Yes? Okay, very good all of you, very, very good. So with this, if you see, we have completed the following topics. We started our class with the introduction to life process, right? We started it with an introduction to life process. We learned about what are life processes, yes? And we learned about how we see that the same life process happens slightly differently between unicellular and multicellular organisms based on body design. Then we learned about the importance of nutrition and how there are different modes of nutrition where we have autotrophic mode, and then we learned about heterotrophic mode, right? Heterotrophic mode, I think my spelling is wrong. Heterotrophic mode. Then under autotrophic, we explored more about the idea of photosynthesis, right? Then we saw and we understood under photosynthesis, right? We learned about the cross section of leaf, right? We learned about the different parts of the leaf. Then after that, we learned about the process in itself and the steps, yes? Then after that, we explored about the opening and closing of stomata in great detail. Then we learnt about how there is an internal reserve energy stored, right? Energy reserve, right? Which is in the form of starch. And along with that, we learnt about the other nutrients that are getting utilized as well. Then we learnt about the adaptation in desert plants, right? And we also looked at the activities. So this was to quickly summarize what all we have learned today, right? So here's a homework question for all of you, which I want you to let me know in the comments. And next class, I will be showing the homework heroes who have given me the correct answer. Now the homework question is an NCERT exemplar question once again, where you need to tell me leaves of a healthy potted plant were coated with Vaseline. Will this plant remain healthy for long? Give me the answer in the comments, right? So this right here is going to be a 2-mark question and I need you to let me know in the comments of this video. Now students who were there with me right from the beginning, it's almost 2 hours and 2.5 hours that I have taken today, right? I know I said 2 hours, but I've taken for 2.5 hours, pretty obviously. But I hope that all of you enjoyed this class. Yes? If you did, very quickly let me know in the comments, right? And let me know what more you would like. See, today if you see, we did NCERT reading, we did PYQs, we did so many different kinds of questions, right? So if are there some kinds of questions that you would like to practice? Are there some specific kinds of topics that you want to revise more? Do you want to do mentee sessions? If you have suggestions, you let me know in the comments, right? And if you enjoyed the class, don't forget to let me know. And thank you so much everyone for staying with me till the very end. Next class, we will be doing the entire human digestive system and heterotrophic mode of nutrition in one go. So I hope that you guys come prepared for the next class. Up until then, everybody, take care. Lots of love to all of you. Hope to see you all very soon again. Up until then, take care, lots of love, and bye-bye.